I will discuss some basic things in algebra. So what is algebraic expression? In mathematics, an algebraic expression is an expression that contains variables, constants, and algebraic operations like addition and subtraction. Letters like x, y, and z are commonly used as variables. And this is an example of algebraic expression. In that expressions, it has two terms. The first term is 4x and the second term is 3. So in that expression, x is the variable while number 4 and 3 are the constants. In an algebraic expressions, we have what we call as monomials, binomials, trinomials. But binomials and trinomials can be called as polynomials because an algebraic expression with more than one term can be called as polynomials. Now we were going to discuss how to add and to subtract like terms. Let's say if we add 7x plus 5 plus 3x minus 2. So we were adding two binomials. How can we add these two binomials? The first thing to do is to add the like terms, which are 7x and 3x, and add the 5 and negative 2. And that will give you 10x plus 3. Now let's talk about adding through two trinomials. Let's say we have 2x squared plus 4x plus 5. And we wish to add 3x squared plus 5x plus 8. So by adding the similar terms, we get 5x squared plus 9x plus 13. Now let's talk about subtraction of algebraic expressions. Let's say we have two trinomials. The first is 3x squared plus 6x plus 5 minus 2x squared plus 2x minus 8. Before we will add the similar terms, the first thing to do is to distribute the negative sign into the second trinomials. So all of the signs in the second trinomials will be changed. It means that the positive sign will become negative and the negative sign will become positive. So the second trinomial will become negative 2x squared minus 2x plus 8. Now the new expressions will become 3x squared plus 6x plus 5 minus 2x squared minus 4x plus 8. And it is considered as one algebraic expression. Now we can combine like terms. So 3x squared minus 2x squared is equal to x squared. And 6x minus 4x is 2x. And 5 plus 8 is 13. So our final answer is x squared plus 2x plus 13. Now let's talk about multiplication of algebraic expressions. Now we were going to multiply two monomials. Let's say we have x squared times x cubed. When we multiply two monomials with a common base, in this case is x, what you need to do is just add the exponents of two monomials. In this case, we will add 2n and 3. So the answer is x to the fifth. Now let's understand why that is the case. So what really is x to the second power is basically x times x. So what it means is that we are multiplying the two x variables together. Basically, each x has the power of 1. Same with x cubed. X to the third power is basically x times x times x. And each x has the power of 1. So when we combine two x variables, x times x, x1 times x1, and 3x variables, we get 5x variables that we are going to multiply. So adding this, we get x to the power of 5. Let's try another examples. So let's multiply x to the 4th power and x to the 7th power, and x to the 6th power and x to the 8th power. So this is equal to x raised to the power of 4 plus 7. And then we get x raised to the power of 11. The second problem is basically equal to x raised to the power of 14. Now let's talk about dividing a monomials. Let's say we have 36x to the 8, y to the 9, over 9x to the 5th, y to the 6. So the first thing to do is to divide 36 by 9. So 36 divided by 9 is equal to 4. Next is we need to divide x to the 8th power by x to the 5th power. To do that, we need to subtract the top exponent by the bottom exponent. So it is going to be x raised to the power of 8 minus 5. And we were going to do the same thing with the y variable. So it is going to be y raised to the power of 9 minus 6. 8 minus 5 is 3, and 9 minus 6 is also 3. So our final answer is 4x cubed y cubed. Let's try another example. Let's say we have 45x to the 7, y to the 8 over 15x squared, y to the 11. Doing the same thing with our first example, we were going to have 45 divided by 15 is equal to 3. Then for the x variable, we have x to the 7 minus 2. And for y variable, we have y to the 8 minus 11. So our final answer is 3x to the 5th, y to the negative 3. Now, what shall we do with the negative exponent? So anytime we have it, the variable that bears the negative exponent, we need to move it to the other side of the fraction. So in this case, we need to move it to the bottom of the fraction. Therefore, the final answer is going to be 3x to the 5th y cubed. Let's work on a more complicated example. Let's say we have 9x to the 5th y to the negative 4, say to the 7, over 72x to the 9, y to the negative 6, say to the negative 10. This time we have three variables because in some algebra exams, you will see some problems that look like this. So what is 9 divided by 72? Since 72 is larger than 9, all we could do is simply those two numbers. So you could break down the number. For instance, 72 is 9 times 8. Now you will cancel 9. So you will be left with 1 over 8. So we can reduce 9 over 70 to 1 over 8. Next, we could divide x to the 5th power by x to the 9th power. And this will give you x to the negative 4 power. Now, y raised to negative 4 power divided by y raised to the negative 6 power can be written as y to the negative 4 minus open parenthesis negative 6. So negative 6 is positive 6 and this will give you y to the second. Now for say variables, it will give you say to the 7th power. Since the exponent of x is negative, it will move to the bottom of the fraction and therefore the final answer is y squared, say 17 over 8x to the 4. Sometimes you're gonna see this type of problems and where you have an exponent raised to another exponent. So whenever you raise an exponent to another exponent, you need to multiply those two exponents. So x to the 4 raised to the 3rd power is simply x raised to the 4 times 3, which is equal to x to the 12th power. Let's try another example. Let's say we have 2x squared with exponent 3. This time we have two variables, that is 2 and x squared. That is raised to the 3rd power. You should write that also as to the 1 power x squared close parenthesis exponent to the 3 power. And now by multiplying the exponent inside the parenthesis with the exponent outside, it will give you 2 cubed x to the 6. Now what is 2 raised to the power of 3? That 2 raised to the power of 3 is like multiplying number 2 3 times. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So the final answer is 8x to the 6. How about if we have a problem like this? 2x to the negative 2 with exponent of 3. As discussed in our earlier examples, the variables with negative exponent will be moved to the other side of a fraction. So the problem will look like this. 2 over x squared with exponent 3. By multiplying the exponents, so it will become 2 cubed over x to the 6. The final answer is 8 over x to the 6. Let's try another type of example. Let's say we have 2x squared with exponent 2 multiplied by 4x cubed raised to the 3rd power. So this time, we are multiplying monomials that are raised to some exponent. So the first thing we should do in this case is to distribute the 2 to the exponent on the inside and do it also with the 3. So 2 times 1 is 2 and 2 times 2 is 4. So we get 2 squared times x to the 4th and 1 times 3 is 3 and 3 times 3 is 9. So we get 4 cubed times x to the 9. So we have 4x to the 4th multiplied by 64x to the 9. So 64 times 4 is 256. And then we need to multiply x to the 4th times x to the 9. So we need to add the exponent and this will give us x to the 13. So hopefully at this point you understand how to put all these individual steps together. Now let's move on to our next problem. Let's say we have 3 square x cubed y to the fourth with exponent 2. So the first thing to do is to distribute the 2 to the exponent on the inside. And do it also with 3. This will give you 3 to the fourth, x to the 6, and y to the 8th power, times 2 to the 9, x to the 6, y to the 15. And so this is equal to 81x to the 6, y to the 8. So this is equal to 512 x to the 6, y to the 15. So 81 times 512 is 41,472. And then we need to multiply x to the 6 times x to the 6. So we need to add the exponent, and this will give us x to the 12. Next is to multiply y to the 8 times y to the 15, and this will give you y to the 23. So our final answer is 41,472 x to the 12, y to the 23. Now what if you see a problem that's look like this? Let's say we have negative 5x cubed y to the 5th with 0 exponent. Anything raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. So 8 raised to 0 is 1. 5248 raised to 0 is also 1. Even if you see a problem like this one with a lot of variables, but it is raised to 0, it is also equal to 1. So keep that in mind. Now what is the difference between these three problems? We have negative 2 raised to 3 power, negative 2 in a parenthesis raised to the 3 power, and the last is the same with number 2 problem but with negative sign before the parenthesis. So the first example means that we have a single negative sign, but we are multiplying 3 2's together. So the final answer is negative 8. Now for the second example, the negative is inside the parenthesis. So it is affected by the exponent, which means that we are multiplying 3 negative 2, but the end result is negative 8. Because negative times a negative is positive, and then positive times a negative is negative. Now for the last example, we have a negative from the outside, and then we have 3 negative 2. So we have a total of 4 negative signs. Whenever you multiply an even number of negative signs, it is going to give you a positive answer. So the answer for example 3 is different. It is positive 8. Now let's talk about multiplying a monomial by a binomial. So 5x is a single term. It is a monomial. 7x plus 3 contains two terms. So that is a binomial. Mono means 1, bino means 2. In a problem like this, you first need to simplify the expressions. So you need to multiply 5x to 7x plus 3. 5x times 7x is 35x squared. And 5x times 3 is 15x. So our answer is 35x squared plus 15x. Let's try another example. This time we will multiply monomial 3x with a trinomial x squared minus 7x plus 4. So we have 3x times x squared. So this is x to the first power times x squared. So the answer is 3x cubed. Next is 3x times negative 7x. And that is equal to negative 21x squared. And finally, you will multiply 3x times 4. And that is equal to 12x. So our final answer is 3x cubed minus 21x squared plus 12x. Now how about multiplying binomial by another binomial? So what should we do in this case? In this case, what we can do is to apply something called as word FOIL, where F stands for first, O stands for outer, I stands for inner, and L stands for last. Let's begin by multiplying first term of each binomial. So 3x times 2x is 6x squared. Now, let's multiply the outer of each binomial. So 3x times negative 3 is negative 9x. Then we will multiply the inner of each binomial. So 4 times 2x is 8x. Finally, we will multiply the last of each binomial. So 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Now let's combine the like terms. So negative 9x plus 8x is negative x. Then 6x squared remains. Same with negative 12. Now our final answer is 6x squared minus x minus 12. Now let's multiply binomial by a trinomial. A binomial has two terms, while a trinomial has three terms. Initially, we should have 6 terms before we combine like terms. Before we multiply, let's show all the exponents of the variables. Now let's multiply 4x to x squared, and that is equal to 4x cubed. Next is multiply 4x to 2x, and that is equal to 8x squared. Then we multiply 4x to negative 4, and that is equal to negative 16x. Let's move on to negative 3. Negative 3 to x squared, and that will give us negative 3x squared. Next is we multiply negative 3 to 2x, and that will give us negative 6x. Lastly, we will multiply negative 3 to negative 4, and that will give us positive 12. Now we are ready to add the like terms. Now we can bring down 4x cubed. Next is to add positive 8x squared and negative 3x squared, and that will give us positive 5x squared. Next is we add negative 16x and negative 6x, and that will give us negative 22x. Lastly is to bring down the positive 12. So the final answer is 4x cubed plus 5x squared minus 22x plus 12. Now let's multiply a trinomial by another trinomial. Before we multiply, let's show all the exponents of the variables. Now let's begin by multiplying x squared to 3x squared, and that is 3x to the fourth. Then multiply x squared to 5x, and that is 5x cubed. Then multiply x squared to negative 4, and that is negative 4x squared. Then multiply 4x to 3x squared, and that is positive 12x cubed. Then multiply 4x to 5x, and that is positive 20x squared. Then multiply 4x to negative 4, and that is negative 16x. Then multiply negative 3 to positive 3x squared, and that is negative 9x squared. Then multiply negative 3 to 5x, and that is negative 15x. And lastly, multiply negative 3 to negative 4, and that is positive 12. Now we are ready to add the like terms. Now we can bring down 3x to the fourth. Next is to add positive 5x cubed and 12x cubed, and that will give us positive 17x cubed. Next is we add negative 4x squared, positive 20x squared, and negative 9x squared, and that will give us 7x squared. Then we add negative 16x and negative 15x, and that will give us negative 31x. Lastly is to bring down the positive 12. So the final answer is 3x to the fourth plus 17x cubed plus 7x squared minus 31x plus 12.